Hey everyone, Noah Zerby here. This is one of a series of short videos where we look at the state in international relations. This video focuses in particular on the Peace of Westphalia and the rise of the modern European state. Now, in an earlier video on feudal European states, we concluded by considering a number of limits on state formation imposed by that model. All of those limits that we explored in the previous video, and in particular tensions between religious and secular authority, reached their peak in 1618, culminating in the outbreak of the 30 Years' War. The war started when Ferdinand II, who had come to power over the Holy Roman Empire, decided that Roman Catholicism would be the official religion of the empire. The northern territories, which were predominantly Protestant and had been granted religious freedom since the Peace of Augsburg in 1555, rebelled. The decision broke with the traditional separation of religious and secular authority, and Ferdinand II was attempting essentially to claim both. What started as a regional conflict between Protestants and Catholics in the Holy Roman Empire quickly expanded, drawing in combatants from across the Holy Roman Empire and as far away as England, France, Spain, and Holland to the west, Russia and the Ottoman Empire to the east, and Sweden to the north. The conflict had a devastating impact across Europe. It destroyed agriculture, bankrupted kingdoms, and provoked famine. Affected states often saw between a quarter and half their populations die either in conflict or more often as a result of disease and famine. In all, an estimated 8 to 12 million people died as a result of the 30 Years' War, making it one of the deadliest conflicts in European history until World War I. Now, the 30 Years' War drew into sharp relief the pressure on states to maintain standing militaries, and it was this final limit that may have played the ultimate role in the decline of the feudal system and the rise of the modern state in Europe. Exacerbated by the ongoing 30 Years' War, kings and nobility were increasingly desperate to raise revenue to finance their wars. According to historian Charles Tilly, whose most famous work is entitled War Making and State Making as Organized Crime, war was the primary driver of the state formation in Europe. As he puts it, war made the state, and the state made war. Power over territory they already controlled. In order to finance these armies, nobles required a steady supply of revenue, especially in the form of taxes paid in cash. To ensure the collection and management of tax revenue, states had to develop ever more complex bureaucracies, which led them back to having stronger standing armies. In a sense, Tilly sees the formation of the modern state essentially as a protection racket similar to those employed by organized crime. Peasants and townspeople were forced to pay money to the king in order that the king could maintain a military both to protect them from external threats, but also to compel the subjects to continue to pay their taxes. Thus, the 30 Years' War saw a dramatic increase in the size and professionalism of military forces involved. Importantly, the war itself was brought to a close through a series of treaties, collectively referred to as the Peace of Westphalia of 1648. But the implications of the peace were much broader than the conclusion of the war itself, and if you remember no other date in this class, you'll likely remember 1648. The Peace of Westphalia established the broad framework for the new European and later international order. In the peace, the parties to the treaty, which included most of the major political actors of the day, recognized one another's equal legal standing and agreed that each was an independent political actor. These two principles, the legal equality of states and the independence from external control, became the basis of the principle of sovereignty central to international relations today. This was most clearly articulated through the principle under the Peace of Westphalia that the sovereign or ruler of the state had authority to determine the country's religion, but extended to all aspects of internal affairs of the state. That principle is even found today in the Charter of the United Nations, which states that, quote, nothing should authorize intervention in matters which are essentially within the domestic jurisdiction of any state, and is usually referred to as the principle of non-intervention. In recent years, the principle of non-intervention has become more problematic and indeed has come into direct conflict in the debates over the protection of human rights and the responsibility to protect, which we'll discuss in more detail when we come back to the United Nations later in the course. For now, let's just highlight the distinctive features of the modern state and how those features differ from those of the medieval European state. In terms of the nature of rule, we see the personal rule of kings and other nobles replaced by professional bureaucratic rule. We also see the fragmented political authority of the medieval system replaced by the centralized authority of the modern state. We see the private mercenary armies belonging to multiple lords replaced by a single standing professional army owned by the state. And we see the personal sovereignty of the king replaced by the concept of national sovereignty, rooted, at least theoretically, in the power of the people. This is not to say that the state emerged fully formed from the Peace of Westphalia. Rather, the peace, or treaty, established in a very broad stroke the international character of the state, defined largely in terms of sovereignty. The domestic national character of the state would continue to develop, often in divergent and contradictory ways. Most of that development is the focus of another field of political science known as comparative politics, so we'll leave that for now. So what should we take away from today? First, that the modern state is the outcome of a very specific historical development in medieval Europe and emerges in the 17th century. From there it expands, as Ringmar observes, through European colonialism. And by the 1960s, as independence movements gain steam around the world, it becomes the primary form of political organization globally. Well, that concludes our consideration of the emergence of the modern state. Be sure to watch the other videos on alternative state formations in this series. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.